Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I'm Celestial, and you are welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you are very welcome. The Master's Voice is an audio and a visual resource that you can find on multiple streaming platforms. And if you're new, I highly recommend that you try out the podcast option that you can find at Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music. I'm on Spotify and SoundCloud. I'm on Odyssey, Listen Notes, and a ton of other places that are just basically free to air. You won't even need a subscription. The benefit of the podcast is that because it's hands-free and there's so much material to get through, you can find the same playlists that you find here on the visual channel, with the benefit that because it's hands-free, it's almost distraction-free. You can just listen as you go about your day. And if you're a new person and there's so much material to get through, I really think that it will be helpful for you. There's a Spanish language channel and blog. The title of that is called Canal Profético, La Voz del Señor. I really encourage people to share. I have alternate channels. I have one in French, I have one in German, and one in Spanish. And you can find all these on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog dashboard, as well as there's translation services here. I've enabled automatic dubbing, I think, as soon as it became available, as soon as I found out about it, maybe a month later. But the problem is that YouTube does not translate my video. Automatic dubbing is supposed to be just a free benefit to all channels so that people can listen to the messages in their own language. But for some reason, even though it's fully enabled on my videos, it doesn't work. And so there's translation services, but you have to wait for about 24 to 48 hours for that to kick in. So if you speak something else, the video will eventually be available in quite a few languages, but you have to wait for a little bit. I apologize for that. I have a prophecy from the Lord that I got yesterday, December the 4th, 2025. And it is a prophetic message that has been consistent since 2019. 2019 is when I started the written blog. It doesn't mean that's when I first started receiving prophecy. It's just when I started the written blog, and there are quite a few prophecies to this effect since 2019 on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog, and that is because it is something that the Lord has consistently said and will keep saying until the day of its fulfillment. However, here in the year 2025, I've prophesied this. I think this would be the 5th time that I've made this prophecy since about the middle portion of the year. So since about June, July, this message appears in the prophecy. The beast system is in effect. You will hate what comes next. It's in, you can find it in a year previous, in 2024. There was a prophecy about John F. Kennedy in 2024. I can't quite remember the name of it, but it was discussing a funeral that I saw. And God said that America will lose 2 presidents. And then in the prophecy in 2023 that is called the Patriot Act, there's a portion that says that presidents can die. Presidents can die. Presidents do die. And America is going to find out all the pandemonium and upheaval and shock and fear that can grip a country when a president does die. And so I clipped that snippet, and it is called A Favorite Son Will Fall in America. And so this prophecy, the Lord has given it the title, The Chain of Continuity Will Be Broken. And the date is December the 4th, 2025. And so I'm going to read the whole thing through, because for some it might be a new prophecy, but for most, if you've been here for a little while, you've heard this message definitely several times this year. So the chain of continuity will be broken, December 4th, 2025. I was speaking to the Lord yesterday, and I have been toying with the idea of taking this month off. I was saying to the Lord, Lord, it's been a more challenging year than past years, and that's really saying something. 2025, the tagline for 2025 that I spoke in 2023, December 2023, is 2025 the year that the wheels fall off, a descent into madness. So before we even got into 2024, that is the message the Lord gave me, that 2025 would be the year that the wheels fall off, meaning that everything would go absolutely wrong for America. And then the tagline, the descriptor, is basically the descent into madness. And we've now come to the end of 2025. And exactly as I prophesied, America is a nation that we don't recognize anymore. No matter how diehard people want to be, those who are supporters of the government that we currently have, people are experiencing piercing buyer's remorse. People are in the grip of great hypocrisy in that they voted for something that they now are choking on so bad that they're not able to take ownership of it. And so everywhere you look, there's this convenient scapegoatism that's happening where people say, well, what was I supposed to do? I was voting my conscience, but then I didn't vote for all this. But the problem is that God had already prophesied years in advance of this election, exactly who the current candidate, the current president of the country was. So it's not about voting anyone's conscience. What it is about the hard-hearted nature of the people that live in America. The fact that people are extremely embedded in their belief system. They're extremely embedded in their individual political streams. They simply can't be turned from worshiping what they worship. And the majority of people don't worship God in this country. It doesn't matter what they say with their mouths. Their lives expose them to be highly idolatrous, highly prideful, very stubborn people who almost boast in their unbelief. You can tell people in America anything prophetically, and their responses generally will prove it. What do I have to go on? And this just speaks to the terrible state of spiritual teaching in the church in America to begin with, because who rebuts prophecy by saying, prove it? That literally shows you that people in this country barely know what prophecy is to begin with, because what are you saying? That someone should leapfrog into the future and get you the proof that is in the future? Because prophecy is literally telling you of things that are yet to come. So how do you then attempt to rebut that? By saying, prove it. And so America right now is experiencing, it's more than a pinch. America's caught in a vice of its own making. And I was sitting on the couch after a long day, and I was saying to the Lord that I was thinking that I would take the entire month of December off just for myself, just to reset, just to pray, to plan, to get ready to step into 2026, because I was having the feeling that 2026 is going to be even more demanding than 2025 was. And so I was thinking that it would be good for me to just step away from the blog, because I'm not chained to this platform like other people. They're making videos because they need the money. But I make the videos because I actually have something to say. I actually have messages from God. I really am what I say that I am. And since we're living in the proof of that right now, I don't need to belabor the point. So I was telling the Lord that I think I need to step back. I was telling him that I think I need December off. And I've already been gone for quite a few days, about 5 or 6 days. And the Lord was saying to me, no, you have to go back and prophesy. And he was telling me that 2026 will go even harder and even faster than 2025 has gone. And 2025 has gone by at breakneck speed. I'm sure some of us are still staggered by the fact that we are in the month of December. And that's because this current administration doesn't give you a moment to catch your breath. Every single day, shock and awe has been taking place on the televisions and the social media spaces of America. And that also was prophesied. I told America that the time will come when the TV will be the star of your home. You won't be able to move away from your television. You won't be able to move away from your media devices, because if you step away for even half a second, there's going to come a new rule. There's going to come a new pivot. There's going to come a new shift. And you run the risk of being uninformed because I said it's going to be worse than the COVID times. In COVID, every 11:59, there was a new law, there was a new rule, there was a new emergency measure, there was a new regulation. And so you had no choice but to stay glued, even though the negative payoff was extreme loss of peace and this feeling that you were spinning out of control and that you were going crazy. And so the Lord was telling me that 2026 is going to go by even faster, that the pace is going to be even harder. The pace is going to be even faster. And I was thinking, well then, Lord, surely this supports my point. All the more reason for me to step away, enjoy the last 3 weeks of the year. And he was saying, no, you have to go back and prophesy. So I thought he was just talking to me, but now I'm reading you what he said. And he said, you have to go back and prophesy and make it known to the people that the president will be killed. He will not be alone when he dies either. The chain of continuity will be disrupted and the American government will sit empty. The president doesn't know this. He doesn't know anything about what's about to happen to him. He doesn't know that he has a vote of no confidence from the highest halls of power. The powers that be don't need him anymore. He has finished his assignment. They see no use in him left. They will vote him out of office in the most expressive way possible, in an open rebuke in front of everyone. An assassination is the loudest job review that you can get. It says, you didn't do well and your tenure will not be renewed. You can go now. The chain of command will be interrupted in America. The throne will sit empty, and the upheaval that will ensue in America will be incredible to witness. Even a third world nation does better at handling presidential killing. Even a third world nation facing the death of its president shows more restraint and does better than the leaping and bounding that will follow the murder of a sitting U.S. president. Cubans and Venezuelans did better when their presidents were killed. Watch what America will do. A presidential exit is around the corner for you. The global instability of it can't be underplayed. Enemies will move into position so rapidly that it will take your breath away. Enemies will creep in, seeing the opportunity of a lifetime. Infiltration into the halls of power will reach max efficiency when the president dies, and that's because the order will be disrupted. There will be pandemonium, secrecy, terror, and upheaval, all of which will make wide open doors for their spies to make use of. America, why aren't you listening? Why haven't you paid attention? What happens when the hand on the wheel is strong and then suddenly it's taken off? The car goes off the road. The republic goes off the rails. The chain of command exists, but it won't be followed. The chain of command is there, but nobody pays attention to it in a nation under as much tension as this one is. You have put your hope in the rules in vain. You have trusted the system for nothing. It will not help you in the event of a collapse of government. The chain of command won't operate. Another thing will be done. You will get nothing you want, America. Only a slow, inevitable slide to the bottom. And it's necessary because the bottom is where the predators get you. That is the end I have for you. The predators will get you, and you'll be unable to fight back. Emergency measures will be put in place, citing danger to the republic. National security, military rules essentially, will become the order of the day in America. Presidents can die. Presidents do die. Presidents get removed and don't always get to retire peacefully afterwards. MAGA has completed the assignment, and the clock is ticking into overtime. Bring in the beast. Bring in the new world order. Bring in the one world government. Bring in the deception that the whole world marvels after. Bring in the end of days operation and the rise of a global kingdom. This is the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord. And so, that is the body of the prophecy. That is the message. This is basically what God was saying to me. And this one didn't really take a long time to write down because he was speaking, Yah was speaking so matter-of-factly, right? And he was just basically telling me, even before I started to make this recording, the Lord was just kept saying to me, the chain of continuity will be broken. The chain of continuity will be broken. And so I'm going over the message and I'm looking, because the chain of continuity is basically what kicks in if anything happens to the president of a country. There has to be a chain of continuity, because even though the president tends to be a very large figure, every president looms large in his country. Everybody is looking to the president because everybody feels that they've had some kind of involvement in the election of their president. Either you voted for the guy or you voted against the guy, and you have very powerful, compelling, and personal reasons why you vote for the person that you vote for. And so when this person is walking around, you hate him or you love him or whatever the case may be, this person is the living representation of the will of the people. Those who represent, those who voted for him, he's the representation of the fact that, hey, they won. And those who did not vote for him, he's the representation of the fact that you might want to go back to the drawing board. You might want to field a stronger candidate next time. You might want to, in some countries, you might want to look at the safeguards surrounding the election, especially if you've had somebody in power for more than 2 terms, 3 terms, 5 terms, 30 years, 40 years. Somebody who over time has started adjusting constitutional provisions to make the presidential term longer and longer. You've gone from 4 years to 7 years to 9 years in some cases, which means that when this guy rigs the election and wins, he has an entire decade almost to stay in power without having to worry about a challenge, without having to worry about, changes to his policies. He pretty much gets to set the nation up as he wants, build a strong power base, because 9 years, 7-year terms are extremely long periods of time for one person to sit unchallenged at the top. And so you have the president, he's the visible figurehead of a nation. And then because you need to have safeguards around that visible figurehead, because, he's not God. He's a man. And like I said, if he represents the half of the country that won, that got their political wishes granted, then obviously he is something of a thorn in the side of the other group of people who did not have their political aspirations materialized, manifested, realized. And so there's enemies and there's intrigue and then there's plots and things like that. There's the army that might rise up, and so anything might happen. A president can fall sick. A president can suffer an assassination plot. A president can have a heart attack. Something sudden can happen. There could be a car accident. There could be an external threat that can kill a president. America knows a lot about that, the external threat that kills presidents in other countries. And so you need to have a kind of chain of continuity so that if anything happens to the visible figurehead, the nation doesn't go careening off the road. The nation actually has somebody who will step in, and somebody who will step in after that, and somebody who will step in after that, so that there's a chain of command. And you've got I think it's the vice president that steps in automatically after that. And in America, he doesn't become acting president or anything like that. He literally becomes the president. So normally, the reason that the vice president becomes the president is because it's an instant stabilizer of that country. You don't have to go and get the guy confirmed and anything like that. He literally steps into the job. And that's why it's very important to pick a capable vice. You're not supposed to just pick somebody for optics. You're not just supposed to pick somebody because, you know what, we need a quick coupling. We need somebody who just looks good on paper, or we need somebody who, because he's younger than the president, then he will be sure to secure the presidential vote, or things like that. You actually need somebody who, God forbid, if he has to run the country, he has the necessary chops to run the country. He has the necessary chops to send a vote of confidence through the people in the country. And so what God was saying here, he was saying to me then, and he's saying now, is that America is going to suffer a disruption in the chain of continuity. And something that he kept insisting on when he was giving me this message is how arrogant Americans are. The Lord was telling me, you know, basically, the way that these people trust in the mechanisms of their government makes it almost too easy to destroy them. And the truth in this is this: when you have what you perceive, because it is not, but when you have what you perceive, what you think is a pretty sturdy government structure, you know, you feel that your country is so democratic when it's not actually. America is terribly sold to personal, private, hidden, secrets, occultic, satanic interests. This country has absolutely nothing approaching freedom. But the deception of freedom is so powerful in the minds of the people, and that's because the government over time has done an exemplary job. When something is exemplary, it means that when you try to look at it to find an area to criticize it, you literally cannot find an area where it's weak, an area where it's bad, an area where the performance was poor. In terms of brainwashing the people in this country to believe that they are superior to other countries, to believe that they are a highly democratic country, when almost everything in America actually takes place from just one single phone call place at the top. Single phone calls are made, and that's how judges get elected. That's how presidents get selected. That's how people in power enter into places of power. Just to know that America is basically bought and sold to corporate interests. And all the companies hold shares in each other so that the entire economy is just a bunch of big companies, large companies that own smaller until it gets down to us at the bottom. America is just basically a huge block of corporations that all own interconnected stakes in one another. And what we call an economy here is just massive corporations buying and selling with each other so that money appears to move in the economy. You tell the average person this, they've gone to an HBCU, they've gone to some kind of fancy state university, they've gone to one of these fancy Ivy League colleges. They'll fight you all day on that because a lot of people in this country, millions and hundreds of millions of people who have been able to access higher education, they wear their higher education closer than their own skin. And so whenever you say things that fly in the face of these vaunted halls of education where they sat and they were indoctrinated and they were told certain things that just don't add up on the ground, they get so defensive because it's not just that you're attacking the image of America or the appearance of America. They feel that you're literally attacking their intelligence, you're attacking their identity because they're a Stanford grad, they're a MIT grad, they're a Harvard grad, they're a Princeton grad, they're Penn State grad. I studied this. I studied economics. You can't say that because economics is the study of reasonable people interacting in the market. No, in America, economics is the study of watching Jeff Bezos and Palantir and the PayPal guy and the president who's basically selling pardons to his criminal friends. That's what America is currently, and that's what America was before. It's just a bunch of corporate interests interacting on a monopoly board where you just get to watch as an ordinary person. And then the way that they include you in the game is to tax you nearly to death once a year. And that's your full contribution to what you think is a free market economy. And so for funsies, you have a president sitting on top of all that. And then you have the chain of continuity to protect that president's life. Because if we're pretending to be a country and not a corporation, then we also have to pretend to have steps in place that will preserve the life of the visible figurehead, so that if anything happens to him, the country doesn't go shaking. The country doesn't lose its ballast and its stability, because we can't have civil war breaking out because, for instance, a favorite is killed. And then those who supported him, of course, who were busy wearing their "We Won" coat, all of a sudden find themselves disenfranchised because their guy is gone. And then someone else steps in to take his place. And then if something happens to that guy, if something happens to the vice president, then I think it's the Speaker of the House, right? A Speaker of the House of Representatives who gets put in. And then if something happens to him, it's somebody else. And I think, I'm not sure who it is, but eventually I know that the Secretary of War is the sixth person who will get put into power if they keep clipping them off. And so there's a safety net. But God was telling me that Americans are so arrogant because they trust in the visible storyline, right? That they've been told so much. They trust in that visible storyline so much that they literally cannot conceive of a situation as diabolical as having the entire plan, the entire chain of command, which he is calling the chain of continuity. The word continuity literally means will go on. Like Celine Dion said, my heart will go on. So the chain of continuity is basically that carefully established and orchestrated step by which America ensures that there will be a steady hand at the helm, so that if anything happens, the nation can mourn, but at the same time, the nation can be sure that there won't be a stock market crash, and there won't be a government collapse, and there won't be the mountains collapsing in on itself. And God says that America truly believes that these things are so rock solid. He was telling me these people trust so much in their systems and their plans that they will be utterly destroyed just in the mind. This is the impression that I was getting, like the mental breakdown alone that Americans will suffer when the fail-safes fail to save, because that's what a fail-safe is. A fail-safe is something that makes sure that if something goes wrong, this other thing will kick in, and the first thing that went wrong will be the only thing that goes wrong. Like nothing else will go wrong. But when the fail-safes fail to kick in, then automatically what you get is a situation of panic. You get a situation of scattering. You get a situation of even the best minds, right? The problem-solving minds, the pundits, the experts. You get these people scrambling because they too are part of the confusion of the general population that thinks we've got a system in place. This is why every time I prophesy that the president will be killed and that America will go spinning off into the void, nobody believes the prophecy. Because everybody in America, bar a few people, believe social studies. Just a few people believe the message that the president will be assassinated. The thing is so stunning to me that when I prophesy the death of the president, people come to the prophecy and say, we pray for his life. I'm talking about across the world. The way that Africans are invested in the life of Donald Trump blows my mind, because Donald Trump is actively abusing Africa right now. Like at least half of Africa at this very moment is utterly banned from applying for anything to come to the United States. We're talking about visas. We're talking about asylum. We're talking about anything. We're talking about even rotating around the cloud of the side of the hint of the U.S. border. The president is actively putting what he calls a permanent pause. He started with 19 countries, then he added 36 more, and of that 36, at least 25 of those countries are African countries. And yet the way that African countries are drinking the sweat of this man, it needs to be studied by the sweat drinking experts. Because what kind of self-hating buffoonery is that? Someone visibly shows you that it's not just that they don't want you. They visibly show you that you are abhorrent to them, that you are a hateful material. And then you will say, we pray to God to preserve his life. And then herein lies the confusion. If God sends the prophecy that this man is going to lose his life, who are you praying to when you say that we're going to stop it? You're cursing his life, I hear. It's been 6 years, and that is still what I hear. You're cursing his life. You're speaking evil. So then we're going to pray, and President Donald Trump will be safe, and his family will be safe. Who are you praying to fulfill that, though? Because if the one person who is the God that we all claim we're talking to has sent a message that he will not defend this person, he will not shield this person, he will not cover this person, and in fact, he extremely, extremely dislikes this person and is angry with this person because of his wickedness that was revealed to you years before any stories came out. This man has never been tainted in the way he's being tainted now, President Donald Trump, as he was pristine in his first presidential run. But there's no real way to quantify the amount of mud that has been slung to this man and has stuck to this man in only 12 months of what is supposed to be a 4-year term. So then, if the message from God is rejected and cast out, then which prayers are you praying so that God, who rejected and cast him out, will now come and preserve his life? But let's not go into that. Let's instead look at this message from the Lord in detail. So then, with the Lord saying that American trust in political structures, American trust in legal structures, American trust in the chain of continuity, which is the entire mechanism that has been set up to make sure that America is protected, that they'll be able to grab someone and put that person in the bunker if anything happens to the visible head, if anything happens to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. I think the chain of continuity goes all the way down to the Secretary of Agriculture. Like, each and every single minister is listed. So ostensibly something exists, and yet God is saying in the very beginning of the prophecy, go back and tell these people that the president will be killed and he will not be alone when he dies either. The chain of continuity will be disrupted and the American government will sit empty. There was a message that I did. Perhaps it's 2021. It is one of the shortest prophecies I ever wrote. I think it is only 3 or 4 sentences. Just a moment, please. So before I read this brief prophecy for you, that is actually from 2019, August 17, 2019. What the Lord is basically saying here when he says that the president will not be alone, that he will be killed, and he won't be alone when he dies either, then it's speaking to a kind of situation where the president's going to be in the presence of, at the very least, the vice president, because it wouldn't be necessary to mention that he won't be alone if, for instance, he was with Pete Hegseth, for instance, who's 6th in line. If number 1 and number 6 are together, there's still number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 in the chain of continuity. So then, while it will certainly be an explosive event to see the Secretary of Defense, the so-called styled Secretary of War, and the president lose their lives in some kind of simultaneous situation, it doesn't mean that the chain of continuity will come to a halt. God is basically saying that America should expect some kind of event that's going to make it impossible for the usual protocols to kick in. Yah is saying that America should expect something to happen that is going to make it impossible for the snap, 1, 2, 3 to follow. A 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to read you this, and then I'm going to go into something that I found when I was going back in the Obama prophecies, something that I absolutely wrote down and moved on through the years and never went back to it until I said, I'm going to start going back and I'm going to find every place that Obama is mentioned. And in one of the places where Obama is mentioned, something else is mentioned there that I literally have no memory of until I started speaking about this. I've never actually mentioned anybody else losing their life at the same time as the president. All the prophecies has always been, God says that Donald Trump will be killed. God says that Donald Trump does not have the full story. That's from the prophecy Ready Player One. Yah has always said that this man doesn't have the full story. And he says that is the deficiency in working for the beast, who is Barack Obama, and in working for the beast system. The deficiency is that these people all tend to orbit the throne of power. The throne of power itself is where Obama sits. But then people like the Bushes, the entire Bush family, the entire Obama family, the entire Clinton family, the entire Trump family, all these families, basically. I guess I would say the Carter family. Anybody else who's still alive in the scheme of things, anybody who's so-called American presidential royalty, as well as all the governors and whatever, they loosely orbit this throne of power that is Obama. But the further away you get from the center of power, the less you know. And so a lot of these people, governors and things like that, unless they are going to these secret masses, these secret rituals where they all know who's the head honcho, who is Barack Obama, then they will just think that whatever president they have is the actual president they have. But the closer you get to the apex of power, the closer you get to that centralized core where the Bushes know, obviously the Carters know, the Clintons know, and obviously Obama's own circle knows. The Trumps also know who is the real president in America. The closer you get to the core of power, God says that the beast does not reveal to them that there is a higher end game than the one they all think they're collectively playing. So collectively, they all know that they have sold America for parts. America has been sold for parts. America has been sold for a final destruction. America will be handed over to enemies and destroyed. So she won't even be able to defend herself or anything like that. And so the powers that be inside the country are working actively to crash the economy, to bring about a poverty that the living members of America have absolutely never seen before. The economic crash that they are deliberately working to cause will be worse than 2008, and it's also going to be worse than the 1933 early crash and then the 1939 later crash. It's going to be, God says, a crash from which America will not be able to rise. The entire nation is going to be absolutely, totally looted with not even a cent left in it to revive it. No bail-ins, no nothing. There will be no saving hand coming. So all those things I prophesied in 2022. So these people know about these plans, but there are higher plans above the roles that they get to play. And I was listening to some of my old prophecies, and in the old prophecies, I was listening to them just today. I was saying that you are appointed to play a role. So in the blue corner, you'll be told that you're going to be representing the blue corner in this election. And of course, they're going to carry on a whole rigmarole where they have to have the Democratic National Convention. And all of that is just noise because the candidate already has been selected in that party. Same for the red party. And then they'll have that debate to occupy you, to entertain you, to give you an opportunity to bond with whichever chicken in the chicken run you're going to bond to. Oh, I like his talking points. His talking points have been carefully crafted for him. And so basically you just like the work of some script writer. These are not these people's values. I told you that these people are serving a demonic, satanic entity that is known as the beast system, and that they have absolutely no loyalty to, no fealty to, no affection for America. It is very pitiable to see Americans so in love with their politicians when the politicians themselves, the higher they are, they have absolutely no love for America. That's why almost everybody in Congress does insider trading. These people don't love you. They're making billions off your back. I already told you in the prophecy from 2022 called Underwater that in the stock market, the rich people don't actually put any money in. And this is coming from somebody who's never entered the stock market a day in her life. They don't put any money in. They appear to put money in, but you know that's just the visibility of their net worth. They're not actually putting money in the way that you're actually connecting your bank account and floating your real money in there. No. They're in there playing games with your cash, the same way the banks are playing games with the deposits that we give them. I saw that they take all the money into a certain corner of the stock market and then they just play with it, multiply it, do stuff that will make you end up broke, and you'll be looking at what looks like the stock price plunging. But I said, no, there's a secret corner of the stock market, and in there, they call themselves the untouchable, and they take your tangible, real life savings, coins that matter to you, and they simply do Scrooge McDuck and pile it up for themselves. They have no fidelity to America, because to them, America is just a concept that serves as a convenient smokescreen for them for now. You've bought into America. You love this thing called America. You believe that it is your country. For these people, it's a shell company, and it's sad to watch you, honestly. It's sad to watch people in America refuse to wake up, because you don't actually know that God knows that the majority of people in this country will absolutely refuse the wisdom that he gives, and therein lies the richness of the judgment. That is what makes the judgment so poignant. That is why the judgment will go to the heart, and you will basically see people falling to the ground when they realize how bad they've been had. It's not that there was no warning. It's not that the warning was just what these liars do. Oh, God told me that something is coming. They can't tell you what the something is. They can't articulate any prophecy. They can't come to you from nowhere and draw a clear parallel through a history that is genuine. I can do it because I've been saying the same thing over and over and over, because I'm getting clean water from one well, and the well keeps pouring out the same water, even to the point of using identical phrases, identical sayings, and little bits of old prophecies. Year after year, he keeps saying the same thing. America is a shell company for these people. You know, a shell company that you do offshore business with, that's the maximum love for the United States that a person like Hillary Clinton has. Maximum. It's a shell company with which she can accept foreign donor money, and at the same time, it's convenient because it allows her to hold a passport that is quite powerful, or used to be quite powerful, so that she can do international business with it. But to you, it's like it's more important than your last name. It's your identity. It's like a god to you. I'm an American. That phrase doesn't mean anything to Obama. It means nothing to George Bush. Absolutely nothing. These people are operating by the protocols. I think it's called Elders of Zion, right? Whatever that is. People just keep leaving it in my comments and saying that's what they rule the world by. Well, so be it. I know they're operating by some type of book, because I saw the book in 2022, and I was saying that I can see that these wicked people operate by books. I said that I see in the book, it says, do this and this and this. It will make the people angry, and it will also affect this part of the economy. Then wait for 3 months. If they react in this way, do step A. But if they react in step B and it's not as bad, then proceed to step D and do that. So I said I was seeing in a live prophecy that these people clearly have books, some kind of ancient books that they use that tells them how to destroy a country, how to break up a country. So imagine the irony of the God that Americans claim we know him, we love him, we serve him, we follow him, we honor him, we believe him. And then you only expect him to do Christmas songs, Easter plays, kumbaya, and tell you that he loves you and that he'll pursue you. And there's no shadow he won't light up and no mountain he won't climb up coming after you. And then when he's basically telling you, loose yourself, captive daughter, Babylon, because there's an actual chain around your neck, then you say, no, where's the Bible verse for this? I tell you, I hear the most amazing things. So in the Bible, Isaiah will prophesy and he will say, Moab will become my wash pot, and over Edom I will throw my shoe. And at the time he's speaking, it's not scripture. He's literally giving the prophecy. And then years later, we will read the words that he spoke. And then that forms scripture for us. But then I'm doing the same, describing what will happen to different nations and kingdoms. And then people like, is she using any scripture? I tell you, the thing is fantastic. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is like watching a lizard eat its own tail and vomit out its body and then eat it again. The people literally shall judge themselves by what they love. And so these people, past prophecies, they have no love for the country. And so that means that they're operating by a different metric. And so that means that when they organize something like an assassination, that's the higher plan that Yah was talking about in Ready Player One, saying that the beast will not tolerate a rival, and certainly not a rival like President Donald Trump, because he's too much of a wild card and he has too much of a hold on the common people. And also, no one who has any prior knowledge of all the insider things that they have done will be tolerated. So I said in the future, you can expect to see all the Bushes gone. You will see especially the important ones like ex-President Bush and his brother gone. You will see the Clintons gone, but they think that they're going to have a place in the future kingdom standing next to the beast because they've served him loyally and they've helped him. So they have an expectation that when it comes into the glorious fulfillment of this thing called the one world order, when it's time to give seats of power and rulership and things like that, they expect to be sitting close to the throne. Even if the beast gives them seats close to the throne, they're not going to have long lives, because he tolerates no rivals. He's not going to tolerate anyone in his court who, if they have an altercation, can suddenly do a live stream or go to Truth Social and start tweeting out compromising things. That is the higher plan that God says they don't know. In fact, the term that God once used for Kamala Harris is that even she will take a dirt nap. Dirt nap in America basically means you die and then they put you in the ground and then they cover you. And then the mafia used to call it a dirt nap, that you're sleeping in the dirt. And so God's saying that while Americans are basically trusting in an almost foolproof, if anything happens, nothing's going to happen to him, God is going to protect him. Okay, that's one lie that people believe. But then they're saying, oh no, we have a strong, robust, we have plans in place in case anything happens. But then God is saying here, the president's not going to be alone when he dies. The chain of continuity is definitely going to be disrupted and the American government will sit empty. So let's listen to the prophetic message empty. Because even if that chain of continuity is stopped by whatever it is that happens and it sits empty for a day whereby you don't see anyone getting sworn in or anyone getting sworn in for a couple of days because the government is scrambling to think this is very unusual, what should we do? This is what Yah was saying. The prophecy you're listening to is from August 17th, 2019, and the title is Empty. The first banner scripture is this: surely now they will say, we have no king, for we do not revere the Lord. As for the king, what can he do for us? Hosea 10:3. The second banner scripture is this: thus says the Lord God, I will also destroy the idols and make the images cease from Memphis, and there will no longer be a prince in the land of Egypt. And I will put fear in the land of Egypt. Ezekiel 30, verse 13. And so in both cases, you hear certain nations saying, we don't have a ruler. We don't have anybody who is sitting in power over us. And God is saying in the second scripture that I will destroy idols. I will strike down what people are looking to, what people are putting their trust in, what people are believing in, what people are considering as iconic, and what people are trusting in. Like, this man will solve our problems. This man will be a solution. America has already been bitterly disappointed because the president clearly, as you can now see, has absolutely no interest in solving anything for you, because the president is on assignment. I told you in 2022 that Donald Trump is a Fed. What's a Fed? Federal agent. What's a federal agent? He is working for the higher purpose that I just described. He's on the same side as Hillary Clinton and Obama. They are working at a higher level above the so-called political divide that controls most of your minds out there. They're working behind the scenes. They're doing kabuki theater. They're doing chaos theory. They have masks on, appearing to be Democrat and appearing to be Republican, but behind, they're a blended front. They're a united front. They play roles to confuse you, but then they're all together and they're working towards a common purpose that has nothing to do with the America you love. America has to be killed for the beast system to come into power. And so the actual prophecy itself is just a few sentences. The White House will be empty of a chief. The White House will be empty of a sitting ruler. The White House will be empty of a hand at the helm to guide it forward, a hand elected and chosen by the people of America. The chair will stand empty, and another type of ruler will come. This is the word of the Lord. So one of the things that Yah is telling us here is not only that we're going to see a visible assassination, according to Abraham Lincoln, according to the order of John F. Kennedy. I've been prophesying that since 2019. In 2019, we got the first prophecy of his death, I think is called POTUS. I'm not sure if I've made that one a video yet, but that's the first one that I can remember, prophesying it in the middle of 2019, POTUS. And then in 2020, Ezekiel 13 prophesied his death. And then there's another one with a bullet. There's another prophecy with a bullet as the cover. And then I just made that one, I think, in 2024. But that's a 2019 prophecy. I finally got to it and I made that one. It's been prophesied over and over. The fall of Dagon, prophesied that the president will be shot and things like that. So here in 2019, God is saying that the White House is not going to have a chief. But now here in 2025, the Lord is turning the kaleidoscope, as he tends to do with the prophecy. And he's looking at a completely different angle. And that angle is called chain of continuity. But it's not just chain of continuity as in who comes next? Will it be J.D. Vance? And then what if something happens to J.D. Vance? And who's next? Who's next? Chain of continuity basically means that America follows the rules that it's always had in place. That America will follow her own rules. She will follow established protocol. She will follow the methodology for how she has always worked in case this type of thing happens. But now God is saying that the American White House will have a hand suddenly taken off it, meaning that the hand that was at the helm, basically the captain at the wheel, the hand that was on the wheel, you just heard it mentioned here again, 6 years later in the 2025 prophecy. I haven't really been talking about the wheel, but 2019, he spoke of a hand at the helm, which is a hand in front at the wheel. And then he says, a new hand will come. It will not be a hand that goes through the election and the choosing process. It will not be a hand that is picked in the right way. So it won't even be a hand that is supposed to step up after the first one falls, then another hand steps up. If that one happened to fall at the same time as the first one, then a third hand is in line to step up. No, it's not going to go the way it's supposed to go. And he says, the chair will stand empty and another type of ruler will come. This type of ruler is the ruler that now is openly part of the beast system. This kind of ruler is what we call, I've been telling you about it for a long time, succession politics. It's not election politics. It is succession politics, where the person now comes in through an extraordinary means. It doesn't matter if they tell you. This is still pretty normal for us, because remember, America lies a lot. America does lie. Just a moment, please. So another type of ruler, we're definitely looking at beast system logistics. And because America is never honest, it will be the kind of thing like they did when they suddenly just announced, right? Because it was so clear that President Biden was now winded, right? In the middle of an election year. It was so clear that he was winded, and his own party basically staged a coup on him, kind of Julius Caesared him, brought in Kamala, just gave her his war chest. She didn't have to do any of the stumping. She didn't have to do anything. She just basically came in and succeeded him so smoothly, superseding other candidates actually who were in the running and had been going, who were supposed to be coming up against him to make sure that they can have a chance to secure the nomination. They had been vetted. The Democrat Party just basically had some kind of quick closed session, whispered, and came back and said, yeah, we've worked it out. And Americans were like, is this normally how it's done? Is it legal? And then you started to see all these articles pop up. Though it seems unorthodox, it's actually pretty normal. And that's what happens here. Normalizing the absolutely abnormal is what happens. And because the people in power know that it doesn't take but a week or two to calm the public down, or you can always stage something off in left field and they'll look at that and quickly forget about the illegal thing you did. That is what happens. But this prophecy is simply a crown that is left in an empty seat. And that's from August 2019. So now the prophecy is going on, and the Lord is saying that President Donald Trump doesn't know anything about what's planned for him. He doesn't know that he is out of favor with the very people he serves. He's not the ultimate authority in the country. I know people think that he's the ultimate authority. No, he's the visible authority, but a sock puppet with a hand in him that tells him what he's going to say today, what he's going to establish today, and if this administration, if this year has been anything to go by, what constitutional provision and what laws he's going to break today. President has broken a ton of laws this year. President has gone directly flown in the face of a ton of constitutional provisions and won. This is the stunning thing. He's gone up against the supreme law of the nation multiple times. He's won and been backed up in it by the Supreme Court. On the ground, he's doing exactly what his handlers want. On the face of it, he should be getting praise, because as America suffers these illegalities, what's happening is that a new system that doesn't follow American laws is clearly being put in place. And that system has been prophesied to you across the years as the beast system that operates more like a monarchy. Beast system operates by one visible head, simply saying, I will do this and I will do that. And then all that happens is that he simply writes it into law. This president has made tons of executive orders, exactly as I was telling you in the intervening years of the Biden administration, that we're going to see a ton of executive orders. We're going into a time of rule by executive order, and we are in that time. So on the face of it, President Donald Trump should be getting an A+ from his handlers, because he has been far more authoritative than any woman would have been. He's accomplished so much more for the incoming governmental system and has trampled America at a far faster pace than anticipated. So then why will he be boosted out of his chair? He will be boosted out of his chair because he's become a liability. He will be boosted out of his chair because he can no longer be sold as a popular president. Was that his doing? No. I told you that the beast tolerates no rivals. The files were suppressed. The files that could easily destroy him. The pressure that could easily destroy him. It was suppressed at one time because it behooved those in power to create the image of a golden boy. A golden calf was sold to America, and America bought it hook, line, and sinker. And I told you that when these people are playing their games, they're playing from multiple angles. One of those angles is simply the joy of watching the American people in disappointment and anguish. You know, this country loves hero worship. Anything is acceptable to worship except Jesus Christ. And so Americans love themselves a hero, the blonder, the better. And this man had become, in most people's eyes, the overwhelming majority that voted for him, a shining paragon of virtue. But now it's fun to pick at that paragon by leaking pictures and by leaking information and by leaking emails that utterly destroy his reputation, that utterly make tears form in the eyes of the grandmas who trusted him with their pension money when they were contributing to his campaign. Young people are disillusioned. MAGA is angry because he sold to MAGA that all this pedophilia and porn that is currently dominating the airwaves was a Democrat thing. But now it's turning out it was a ton of him and his friends involved. At the heart of it, the financiers of it, underage models flown in from all over the world, allegations of forcibly taking sex from young women that were in no position to consent because they were far from home and dependent upon these very much older men for room, board, and career. It's a malicious thing that is now floating in the press. And I told you that in the dark circles, everyone is depraved, but when your depravity comes out, they cut you loose. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. And so he has a vote of no confidence from the highest halls of power. That means they've already blackballed him. And I've been saying this since June or July this year. And I've been saying it since 2023. God says that he will let this man fall into the hands of his enemies. This is the prophecy of the trampoline, that the president was jumping on a trampoline. I think it will be June or July 2023. Going higher and higher, he was jumping up and down on a trampoline, untouchable. He seemed backlit by the sun. And then one day he was on the way down. And even though I was standing on the other side of a fence, a tall fence that didn't allow me to see the trampoline back there, some men came and took the trampoline away while he was in the air. And I knew that he was coming down and he was going to contact the hard earth because they had taken away his ability to constantly bounce back. This man has bounced back from 1,000 scandals. But the likelihood of that is not visible now. He's not bouncing back. He's in the doldrums. He's at the height of the most massive presidential unpopularity ever. And so a vote of no confidence from the highest halls of power means rejection from the highest halls of power, blackballing. Everybody voting in the dark, and they say indicate by waving, because the room is dark, indicate by waving your cigar. Wave it left. If it's nay, wave it right. If it's yay, and then they look around the room and all the cigar butts are going to the left. Unanimous vote. What does that mean? Cut him loose. When the people you serve, who keep you protected, give you a vote of no confidence, then that means that they can either send the wolves after you, or the wolves will go after you on instinct. The powers that be don't need him anymore. He's completed his assignment. This man has already laid the framework, the foundation for anyone else who comes after him to continue to violate the laws of America, because it's now established a new precedent in America that the laws of America are easily trampled. The laws of America are easily ignored. You can easily put vigilantes on the street. You can grab foreign nationals from all over the world because no embassy is challenging America in this. Not a single South American country has really stood up to America with strident tones, besides, I think, the president of Colombia and the president of Mexico. They are not coming together in a concerted effort to say, this is human rights violation, this is illegal. This is the kind of thing that pre-capitalist China and North Korea used to do. This is highly unacceptable. There's simply not that level of international frowning, international censure and blowback. And so America is basically doing what she wants internationally and at home. At home, she's breaking all the human rights laws that she can within a 24-hour period, day by day. But internationally, she's dropping bombs and planning in the sight of the whole world, just like Israel does in the West Bank, to go to a sovereign nation in Venezuela and attack them openly for their resources. America killed a former Venezuelan president. America is responsible for the death of President Hugo Chavez. America kills presidents. America is behind the death, and therefore she's behind the breaking of the chain of command, the breaking of the chain of continuity in many countries. Ya has said that America will pay for the fact that she killed presidents, got what she wanted, and walked out of many countries and then left them to spiral into instability, political instability, social decline, and destruction. Iraq is a shining example of that. But there's also Syria, there's also Afghanistan, there's also Yemen. America, this is a pattern that the United States follows. And so when I was sharing some old clips of this on my other social medias, imagine seeing people, this is just awful. And I answered, did you think it was awful when this exact pattern destroyed Iraq? Did you have these same sentiments when America basically turned that country into a ghost? Just a shell, just an empty dead crab of itself. Nothing but now a functional oil field. All the social goods that the people enjoyed with their health care and their health benefits and stipend from the government, that's all gone. These are hungry, broken, completely disenfranchised people. And the one locus point for why Iraqis' lives have been destroyed for 40 years or more is the United States. You can point to that one locus event, the fact that America carpet bombed that country, killed people, occupied the country, all based on a lie. Not just any lie, a very greedy lie, a very imperialist lie, a very typical lie for a colonizing power. And it should not be too far of a stretch to then ask yourself, did you really think that God was going to let that fly? Did you really think that God was just going to let that melt into the ether and then blow away on the wind and say, oh, well, the bigger nations do what they like? No, God is a God of justice. And so, just a moment, please. And so, when you finish your assignment, there's no use for you left. They see no use in him left. And now they're going to vote him out of office in the most expressive way possible, in open rebuke in front of everyone. Do you actually see the hidden irony of what God is saying here? Donald Trump came to a much bigger fame globally. He was always a businessman. He was into real estate. He was into fashion. He was into stock market and all that. But that iconic program that he had, The Apprentice, really brought this man solidly into the public eye. And his signature catchphrase was, "You're fired. You're fired." Most people don't talk to other people like that when terminating employment, but it became a well-known catchphrase associated with him, associated with his open and blunt style. The man doesn't really hold back. Even in his old age, he says exactly what he's thinking. And so God is saying that he's going to be voted out of office the same way, except that he's not going to be voted out of office. God says he's being kicked out in open rebuke in front of everyone. And that's exactly what he used to do. In open rebuke, he would let the candidates go in front of everyone. He would say, "You're fired." And then God says, getting assassinated is the loudest job review that you can get. That's certainly hitting close to home on a lot of metrics. If you know, you know. To get assassinated on the job is the loudest, "We don't want you." It's the loudest, "You haven't done well." It's the loudest, "Look, we looked at the numbers. We looked at what you bring to the company. We looked at your contribution across the years, and we find that you're not worth keeping. Your tenure is not going to be renewed. You can go now." That's what they would tell you if you were alive and being judged on job performance. But in this case, God is saying, well, they've looked at the job you've done and they don't see anything else that they can get out of you, and so they're going to shoot you. That's the loudest, most public job review that you can get, getting assassinated. And God says that this man doesn't know anything about it. He doesn't know anything that's going to happen to him. He doesn't know the fact that he's lost favor with the bosses. He thinks that he's performing well, and he doesn't actually know that they're tired of getting burned by his public exposure. They're tired of hearing that word Epstein, because so many of them are connected to him that they can't afford to have other names that are shrouded in secrecy. Other names, the so-called redacted names. His name is definitely there. It's certainly exposed. It's been burned. There's nothing that they can do about hiding that, but they don't want any other names, important names, coming out. And so he's now a liability. He's no longer an asset, and they're done with him. And then God is saying, chain of command. The chain of command will be interrupted in America. The throne will sit empty, and upheaval will ensue in America. That will be incredible to witness. And then the Lord starts to talk about how third world countries are better able to handle assassinations than how America will handle it. And that's a very serious indictment, because America is big on calling other people third world. She's big on calling other people backward. She's big on calling other people S-hole countries. She's big on calling other people garbage, as the president recently said about the Somalian community in the United States. America is big on a lot of things, and nobody can say, oh, these are Donald Trump's sentiments. These are sentiments that are echoed in millions, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of Americans. And I've always told you that God cannot be lied to. I've always told you that Yah has his eye on what is in Americans' hearts, that he can see the sentiments of the people. He can see the racism. He can see the elitism, the classism, the superiority over the best and those dirty people in that dirty place. And nowhere is this more loudly reflected than social media. You can see what Americans think easily. Nobody can lie and say that Donald Trump is the sole person, and that Stephen Miller and whoever else, Steve Bannon and the other elective around him. No, that's how they think, and we're not like that, Celestial. No. The comment section bear witness to the xenophobia. The comment section say some of the most horrendous things. And as you see what is coming out of the well that is inside Americans, when you look at how dank and worm-filled, how stagnant is the water inside the people of a nation that claim they're God-fearing people in a God-fearing nation, then you understand why God is going to judge this nation so mercilessly. America is going to be judged without mercy, and America will go into her judgment complaining, we're not the only one who do abortion. We're not the only ones. I've heard it so often. The Muslims, what about the Muslims that are marrying little girls? And what about you that are sleeping with children in the basements? What about you that are sleeping with your own children? At least the Muslims are marrying strangers' children. You sleep with your own children. You sleep with your dogs. What moral compass do you have that could ever spin and accurately land on anybody else? That's worse than what goes on here. And here's the kicker. Here's the thing that for some reason, no matter how much I preach, I've never been able to accurately get this point across. The greatest sin in the United States that is hard to find replicated anywhere else is your unbelief and your disrespect for the person of Jesus Christ. And nowhere is that more powerfully evidenced than the interaction between yourselves as a nation. Don't get hot under the collar, the 9 of you that believe me. Please, we are 351 million here, and I constantly challenge you to look beyond yourself and your little feelings. There's not 1% of the country represented here. There's not 351,000 people here. There's about 260 or 270, I think now it might be 270 people. It's not yet 1%. And the less than 1% that is here, the interaction between me and the people on this internet, the interaction between me and all the people outside the country that are represented everywhere is quite clear. America's sin, America's greatest sin, the one that she will grumble against and refuse to take ownership of, is how godless she is, how God-hating she is. God talks to you and then your response is, I don't trust this somehow. What in you is a metric of recognizing, correctly analyzing, correctly weighing, and coming to a true estimation of what God sounds like? What in the American public is qualified to judge speech that comes from God and accurately ping it as the Lord said this? By what metric is that possible? A people who don't know the Bible, a people who, when confronted with any hypothetical containing sin, automatically say, not too much on the sinner. I don't think God would want that. What would you know about what God would want? The Bibles are cold in the United States. You have a conversation with anyone. My video is posted anywhere. The comments are, but doesn't the Bible say? What have I said here years back? If your sentence starts with, but doesn't the Bible say, you need to close your mouth because you don't know what the Bible says. People who know what the Bible says, say the Bible says. They don't say, but doesn't. The minute you say, but doesn't, you're pulling from the sewer. You're pulling from the little 2-minute TikTok that was trying to tell you something about Jesus, and you listened to the first 30 seconds and then you flicked. You remembered a piece of a shard, of a shred, of a thread of something the person said, mixed with something that maybe if you went to Bible study once in college, and then maybe if you went to Sunday school twice before your family started moving around for military work, that's what you know. This is a generation of people, the young people don't know who Noah is. But doesn't the Bible, keep quiet, you can't come to the table. You don't know enough to have a studied, weighty, measurable opinion on who God is, what God wants, what pleases God. The minute sin is mentioned, the fullness of the sin inside the people say, hey, not too much on God. I don't know much about him, but I know he is love. Yes, he loves righteousness, but he's angry with the wicked every day. When a killing comes, God says even a third world nation does better at handling it than this so-called mighty, well-read, well-studied, well-traveled, everything is available, fancy, first world, democratic leading hero. God says the Cubans handled the killing of their leaders, and the Venezuelans handled the killing of their leaders better than America will handle. He called it leaping and bounding. And do you know what I saw when he said, they handled it better than the leaping and bounding you will see in America, Celestial? What I saw was these large deer attempting to jump in various directions, but because they didn't want to know, this is both female deer and male deer that have the antlers, that have the large horns. I just saw them attempting to leap. And you know, those animals are capable of very high, graceful, and majestic leaps. But because these deer didn't know where they were going, they kept leaping into the air, into the air, attempting to bypass each other like this, across each other like this, and they would smash into one another, headbutting one another accidentally and fall stunned to the ground. I kept seeing deer when he said, you will see the leaping and the bounding that America will do. Third world nations have more restraint, and they do better at kicking into who comes next. Is the vice available? Let's swear him in. Or should we go to snap elections? We need to do that. The president is dead. We're holding a meeting of Congress. We're holding a meeting of the parliament this very afternoon after we break the news to the country that the president died suddenly in his sleep or the president was assassinated. We don't want to spiral into a coup. We don't want to spiral into unrest. We don't want to spiral into a war. We don't want the opposition party to rise up and seize power. We want to continue as much as we can on normal. God says that your Haiti, your Djibouti, newly banned from America, Djibouti, would be better able to handle an event like this than the leaping and the bounding and the smashing into one another, the running into walls and doors that you will see happening in America. And so a presidential exit, he says, is around the corner for you, America. And the global instability of it can't be underplayed, because what's going to happen now is Yah says enemies will move into position so rapidly that it will take our breath away. Enemies will creep in, seeing the opportunity of a lifetime. Infiltration into the halls of power will reach max efficiency when the president dies. And that's because the order will be disrupted. There will be pandemonium, secrecy, terror, and upheaval, all of which will make wide open doors for the spies to make use of. Russia and China are going to better position themselves. Russia and China are going to better position themselves for the end times role that they're going to play. But the thing is, geopolitically, Russia and China are going to be positioning themselves, strengthening themselves outside, without the presence of a president who is admittedly loud, without the presence of a president who is admittedly very strong, without the presence of a president who is obviously a wild card. You never know what President Donald Trump is going to do from moment to moment, day to day, hour to hour, second to second. The man is on Air Force One calling the reporters piggy. Okay, this is prime time TV. Netflix could not have scripted this year, 2025, if they tried. If they have writers from the future, they could not have written the year that has been with President Donald J. Trump at the helm. And so in a situation like that, geopolitically, Russia and China, they can do something. They can meet. They certainly met. They had that Victory Day parade. That was hugely impressive. The whole world was treated to inadvertently looking at America's extremely weak, sad, and rained on display of military strength. And then watch what China alone pulled out the arsenal and had a top-ranking guest list that I know had Pete Hegseth swallowing his spit. North Korea in attendance, Assad in attendance, Putin in attendance, Prime Minister Modi, who hasn't been to China in 22,000 Ice Age years, left India and went over there, and those men were treated like royalty. This is an obvious show of strength on China's part. China's out there rolling missiles that look as big as ships. And the rule in Asian culture is whatever they're showing you, there's a ton more that you haven't seen. Asian guy showing you something, they always keep something in reserve. It's their culture. It's the rule. It's the norm. An Asian statesman would never show his full hand. So if they were rolling out that other missile, the 60 small missiles and one nuke inside that thing, something so big it was on a float by itself, several of them, it means there's more. There's more. Just culture-wise. You can know that. And so global instability is expected from something like this. It's not just going to be the shock of the world looking. No, America loses her president. In these modern times, I have no idea how it affected the world when President JFK lost his life. That was in 1963. I'm not studied up much on what his global reach was, but I do know that he was well liked. And like I said, the man was intelligent, because as God was talking to me, I had this impression of him, that he was a writer. And it turns out later, when you read up about him, that he kept a journal. He was very good at journaling his thoughts. This is a man who, they say that men who journal are more disciplined than people who just talk, because a journal helps you keep track of your growth. It helps you look at your own mind over time. It shows you whether you are consistent or scattered based on your own expressions gazed at in a timeline. And so there's been no president shot in the modern era. There's been no president shot in the modern era in the United States. And this one is so strong. This one is so vocal. This one has an opinion on every single country. The president is currently lecturing other first world countries and strongly urging them to join him in pursuing his latest racist wild card, which is remigration, which is America white only. Every other color must go back to where they came from, because it's automatically assumed that all the colors in America have somewhere that they came from. And I don't know why it's not understood that white is also a color that came from somewhere that is not here originally. But the government is strongly pushing remigration. The government has tweeted out that very eugenics, Hitler-esque, Nazi-style idea that white places for whites only. And he's currently lecturing Europe and telling them that they should rally around and join him in this. And that's why they're crumbling, and that's why they're broken, and their systems are overburdened, because they have all the other colors. And Remigration Now, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, did tweet this in the last 7 days. And I think the tweet is still up. So make of that what you will. So global instability, it won't just be people waking up in shock to see this. This is very real world repercussions for people who are in trade talks with America, for people who are still in partnership with America, even if the relations are strained. It's very jarring to have to deal with a new leader. You don't know who the new leader is going to be. You don't know his ways. Why? Because you've already adjusted yourself to dealing with the leader that you have. When countries suffer assassinations, especially one this important, it will definitely have massive geopolitical ripples. But God is saying that in all that rippling, expect America's enemies on the books. Russia and China are just the two that are discussed here most of the time. But expect the enemies on the books to literally move in to fill the gap. America gets a weak leader afterwards, or a leader who, even if strong, is perceived as weak by these two that are already in ascendancy, China and Russia. It plays into their hands. It plays into their hands. But not only that, God says, because of the fear that will be in the country, because of the upheaval, because of the pandemonium, because of the running around and smashing into one another, the confusion, the not knowing what comes next, the being thrown, if only momentarily, even if it's for a week, being thrown. Yah says that even within the country, the spies of America's enemies that exist, this is all the sleeper cells that I was talking about. This is all the hubs, okay, the hub that I have described, whereby Russia sits in different parts of the country, wired up with some expensive software that allows them to listen, even in the White House. Even in the White House, Russia has bugs, the wiring devices that enable them to listen. They tune in. They have bugs in some of the most important rooms in this country, and they are privy to, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm repeating what God said, all of it. all the so-called private. You know, in the movies, they always show us this glass room. You get in there and then they seal it and then nobody can hear anything. I bet you there's a penny wedged in a corner that can pick up sound on the moon, that they hear everything in that glass room. They make a big deal of that glass room, but God says that the Russians have categorized everything that's in the national parks, everything that's in all the databases, all the names of the citizens, where the citizens live. They have access to the voter roll. They have access to all the medical data. The medical data has been sold to them by Americans. They've bought it from Americans who are sick and tired of struggling, from Americans who are no longer patriotic. They've sold the data, military data. God says they know everything about the military bases, you know, the Fort this and Fort that, and how many soldiers at Fort Bragg and Fort whoever. So that kind of thing. He says that with the presidential exit around the corner, enemies will position themselves so rapidly that it will take your breath away. So then expect explosive moves from other countries. Explosive moves, and you cannot blame the other countries, because when there is one big bully on the block, the minute that bully goes down, everybody begins to show their shine. Everybody begins to position. Obviously, the bigger people rush to take number one spot. They rush to exploit any weaknesses. They rush to exploit any cracks. They rush to exploit any hesitancies that they see on the part of the one who slipped momentarily, went down. When you have powerful enemies, that split second of weakness is like 10 months to them, for them to plan and do stuff. But then as they move up, all the number 3s, number 4s, number 5 will automatically move up to number 2s, number 3s, number 4s, number 5. Everybody repositions themselves relative to the one who fell. So there is that infiltration into the very halls of power. This is listening at the highest level. This is watching. This is spying at the highest level. Will reach maximum efficiency when the president dies. Pandemonium, secrecy, terror, upheaval. None of these are good. See, the American people, I still remember from years back, hearing a vision without pictures. Hearing a vision without pictures, whereby the president died, and I began to hear cash registers ringing all over America. Drawers open, money being exchanged, cash registers opening and shutting, cash registers opening and shutting. What was it? An increase in the purchase of guns. All you have to do is look at the man who was killed in September, and look at the open threats that started coming out of the mouths of the people who follow him. Mr. President, give the order and we'll take care of it. You'll take care of what? What are you, a DoorDash expert? Do you see the vigilante vibes in America? People on social media saying, Mr. President, give us the go-ahead, meaning that the president should come on air and do another January 6th. Come on air and tell them, go out and shoot all the black people, go out and shoot all the Spanish people, go out and shoot all the liberals, go out and shoot all the trans, go out and shoot all the homosexual people, because obviously those are all the groups that killed Charlie Kirk, and then to find out that it was one of the men that are expected to be seen in Valhalla. As usual. As usual. People were literally calling for the highest office in the land to authorize a hit against the so-called visible opposition. And this is what is festering in the country. And I've been saying it since 2020, 2021, that America's on the brink of a race war, that she's on the brink of an ideological war, where so many factions in the country will not be able to get along. And it will be like a powder keg just waiting for a catalyst to set it alight. And so, America, why aren't you listening? Why haven't you paid attention? This is just the prophecy from December 2023. The one where I said that I wasn't able to finish the work of this blog in time, and then I was overtaken the rushing seas came in, all the prophecies started coming to pass, and I was just swept away in the midst of all the things that were happening. And I was singing the song, "Why didn't you listen? Why didn't you listen to me?" And God is saying, why aren't you listening? Why haven't you paid attention? What happens when you have a strong hand on the wheel and then suddenly it's taken off? This is a prophecy from August 2019. A strong hand will be removed from the helm. A hand that the people chose and elected will be taken off, and then a new ruler will come. And God is saying, what happens when you take a very strong hand? President Donald Trump is an extremely strong leader. This is not one of those leaders that you can say utilizes soft power. There's nothing soft about that man. There's no diplomacy there. There's no statesmanship there. It's just a blunt mallet beating and striking everywhere. So what happens when that is gone suddenly? The car will go off the road. Do you know why that is? Driving is an extremely personal experience. You, the passenger, you have nothing to do with what that guy or what that lady in the chair is doing. You're just experiencing the outcomes of their decisions, their choices, how fast to go, whether to brake at the last minute or to brake slowly to give themselves time to come to a stop. You're just on the receiving end. And so America right now, whether it's tariffs, whether it's racist tweets, whether it's racist actions, whether it's snatch and grab of citizens and non-citizens alike, as well as foreign nationals in the country, whether it's the instability of the voter base, both red and blue, whether it's the decline in social services, this is your medical, this is your education. They're taking away the power of people's degrees. They're minimizing the amount of help. They're gutting the Department of Education, reallocating it, just breaking it up into parts and putting different parts of it under different ministries. There's a ton of extremely aggressive and obviously race-based international behavior towards other countries, banning them, and not just banning them in a quiet diplomatic way. No, banning them with loud racial slurs. Just calling huge groups of people on various continents garbage. And then later you have wars, and then you want to run into these garbage regions, forgetting the reputation that has preceded you into these places. So this strong hand, basically what I'm saying is that this hand is driving in its own peculiar manner. And the thing about driving is that when you're driving, each one feels that he can handle the speed that he's going at. A wife will say, "Slow down, honey." And he will say, "I'm not even going that fast. I'm fine." Because he has his driving plot points in his mind. He knows how fast he wants to go. He knows where he's planning to take that turn. He has the driving map in his head. And then suddenly he has a heart attack. And Myrtle is sitting next to him when he was hitting 80 miles an hour. She's not Catwoman. She's not going to be able to jump into that seat fast enough when he suddenly clutches his chest and then falls over prone over that wheel. Myrtle is a passenger. Myrtle is an experiencer of the plan that her husband has set. And so when the one who has set that plan and set that protocol suddenly is axed, the one who is experiencing that plan is often at a loss. And not only that, we all know what the road is like. It's almost 10 out of 10. She's going to get either killed when he has this accident, or at best, she's going to get extremely hurt. So when Yah says something in a prophecy, it is our job to apply our minds, as I have just done, to tell you what it means. When he asks you, what happens when the hand that's on the wheel is strong and suddenly it's taken off? It's actually your job to immediately picture that situation. Your trucker husband, or your policeman husband, or your fireman husband, or your ex-NASCAR husband at the wheel of the car, going above recommended speed, because that's what strong means, and then all of a sudden taken out. What is the outcome on you, the American public? It's a direct impact. I've been saying it. When I heard those cash registers ringing, I also heard a lot of the voices of the president's voter base, which are people in the South, increasingly angry and harsh and saying it ain't right. It just ain't right. Because obviously in their minds, they're going to think that it's a Democrat plot. They're not going to be thinking of shady men puffing on Havanas on the 215th floor of some high rise, plotting to take the country down. Their minds don't go that far. They're going to look to the immediate, the accessible enemy, the one that the kids say lives rent-free in their heads already. That's immediately where their minds are going to go. The Democrats did this. The Democrats have rid of us of our winner. The Democrats were jealous that we won. They killed our guy. And then, bam, there you go. I heard in the spirit, angry voices, strident voices saying, I'm telling you, it just ain't right. It just ain't right. And at the same time, I heard the cash registers ringing, and I knew that these were gun sales. People arming up, people weaponing up. And even on the Democrat side, even though they have all this, I don't believe in guns, a lot of them are arming themselves because the threats from the other side is loud. America's having a gun renaissance right now, and nobody can deny it. Even the unlikeliest groups of people, women of color, are arming themselves at a shocking rate because they don't want to be a statistic. They don't want to be somebody's Saturday night special when they're on their way home from the gym and somebody jumps them in the parking lot or something like that. And so, Yah is saying the car will go off the road and the republic will go off the rails. And the question is, how much more off the rails? How much rails is left, considering where we are right now? These are valid questions that you need to ask yourself. The chain of command exists, but it will not be followed. The chain of command is there, but nobody pays attention to it in a nation under as much tension as this one. And God is saying that's because people put their hope in the rules in vain. People trust the elastic on the drawers of America as if elastic can't just get cut by people with bad motives. It's amazing to sink your hope into the works of man, the plans of man, the setup of man, as if you never looked in the Bible a day in your life. In the Psalms where it says a horse is a vain thing for safety. A horse is a useless animal to trust in. What does the horse represent? The horse represents the normal modes of escape. A warrior rides his horse into battle. If things go wrong, he obviously will retreat, riding that same horse out. And yet, though that is the obvious thing that will save him, the way people look at elections to save them, the way they look at the Fed and the financial system and Jerome Powell to save them, the way they look at the banks, oh no, they'll bail out businesses, there'll be a bailout, the way they look at the government, the way they look at their chosen politician to save them. The Bible says that cursed is the one who trusts in the arm of flesh. And a horse is a vain thing for safety, meaning it's the thing that makes sense. But if you're going to put your trust in the thing that makes sense when you hear what is being prophesied is anti-sense, it's anti the establishment, it's anti what you expect. How many times has God said, America, you will not get a single thing that you want? That's a 2022 prophecy. Change is coming. The one with Donald Trump's face on it. The changing order or something like that it's called. It says, America, you won't get a single thing that you want. You'll be full of frustration. And here God says you will get nothing that you want, America, except a slow, inevitable slide to the bottom. And it's necessary, Yah says, for you to slide to the bottom because the predators are down there at the bottom. And that's my plan for you, the Lord says. It's my plan for you, for the predators to get you, and you will be unable to fight back. So then, the end of the pride is what? The end of the national pride is what? The end of the America first, MAGA first, greatest country, the end of it is what? is to slide to the bottom so that the predators that are at the bottom, that same lion's den they threw Daniel in and he received divine protection. God says, no. It's my plan for you to go down there to where the lions are, and I'm not going to shut their mouths. They will leap on you, and you will not be able to fight them back. Because the system is not going to help you in the event of a collapse of government. The chain of command will not operate. It's not going to kick in. This is a good time to now go to that other message I mentioned that I said I found quite unexpectedly. So I'm going to read a tiny bit from a prophecy. It's not really a prophecy, it's my notes. November 8, 2019, and it's called Divine Assurances. I've just put it there in short form for you to see the date, but there is more. And so, in the night, the Lord visited me, encouraged me, and comforted me. And I want to record that encounter as well as a few things over the last days, he said, that have strengthened me during prayer. Now, let me just go to... I'm just going to read it all because all of this is interconnected. And I did say that I would be covering certain things. Last night I was praying and God was talking to me about some things. And as I prayed, I saw Barack Obama appear in a short vision. It was just a portrait shot of his head and shoulders. He wore a black suit. He was very angry and his teeth were pulled back from his lips in a grimace. The image, the way that picture was designed was like comic books, you know, so it wasn't like real life the way I look now. It was like a comic book image of him in a room. And I think I've made this one before. It was a dark paneled room and he was just sitting there in a dark suit and his teeth had started to lengthen into wolf's teeth, right? I did make this one. I think I've made this into a video. His teeth had started to lengthen into wolf's teeth. The canines on both sides, the upper and the lower, they started to form like vampire teeth, wolf's teeth, big teeth. And his eyes had a curious ring of fire in them. So he had, sometimes, you know, people are recording and they have their ring light in front of them and then there's a reflection of the ring light in their eyes. But he literally had a ring of white fire in his eyes, right in the center of his iris, right there. So it was brown eyes and then a white ring of fire inside the brown. And the American flag was on the wall behind him. It was a quick flash of a vision. So I kept trying to pray for a minute or two past it, but then I couldn't focus and I had to stop and I asked the Lord, why did I see that? What is that man about to do? And the Lord said, that is the beast. That is the beast spoken of in Revelation chapter 13. That is the one that is about to take power in America. And when he does come to power, he will cause great harm to the children of God and greater harm to the nation of America. He is coming back to power. He will indeed sit in the White House again. At a certain time, the president and the vice president will be shot. You're looking at me, I'm looking at you. This has been sitting here since November the 8th, 2019. Just wrote this down. I think it's because I was writing down more things about myself, and those were the things I really focused on. So God said at a certain time, the president and the vice president will be shot. And I thought, at least the impression that I had, is that these people will be shot either in their head or in the chest. In the chest. And I do have a prophecy where I was talking about Donald Trump and there was a blood stain spreading on his shirt. I think it's called America in Tumult Part 3. And he didn't know. There was a whole blood stain spreading on the shirt. So that's the impression that I had. It would be a head shot or a heart shot. And God said, listen to this. Both will be taken out So there is no chance of succession, and that it will affect the popular vote. There will not be a popular vote after that. And I haven't finished the prophecy that I'm doing now, called the chain of continuity will be broken, because the last part of that actually says that emergency measures will come in, military rule will come in. They will use national security as a way to go into basically what we call martial law. There won't be a popular vote after that. And God was talking about there will come a time where Obama will be appointed as interim head of operations, and he will receive absolute power by this appointment. It will be in a time of military rule and loss of personal freedoms. He will crush this nation to powder under his regime because he is diabolical and wicked. He will rule with an iron fist, and many hardships will come upon the American people under his leadership. So, there you go. God told me even the natural plan of succession that's supposed to have the Speaker of the House. God told me even the natural plan of succession that's supposed to have the Speaker of the House next in line, because obviously he says President, Vice President shot. That's supposed to have the Speaker of the House next in line for the presidency. Whatever that is supposed to be won't be followed. They won't put any of those powerful people in the seat. God was talking about Obama and says that when Obama comes in, he will come in under some title that is not president, but he will indeed be an absolute ruler, almost like a monarch or like a dictatorship. He will have total power in America and will also wield iron influence in many nations. God said that he will persecute the church. And I'm just saying, oh, I was so sad. I was grieving to hear that. I really can't stand this man, and I don't want to see him anywhere. So let me see if there's anything more. No. So there you have it. The Lord mentioning that president and vice president will be shot in America. And like I said, I was having an impression of headshot or a chest shot. And basically he says that they'll try to, or they will take out both of them to disrupt the natural flow of continuity. And with both of them taken out, he says, instead of it going to the Speaker of the House or the Speaker pro tempore or whatever it is, they won't do that. And that the popular vote is going to go away. And we will go into a time of military rule, a time of personal freedoms. I've been saying here for a while, since 2023, I think there's one particular prophecy called You Will Go Back. And it was saying that we will go back to times that are worse than COVID. We will lose all personal freedoms. Yah was saying that in the time of COVID, they allowed you to go outside to have some active time. So we could go to the park. You know, you could go to the park for like an hour or two, but this just being free, walking around outside, it was not like that. People took a certain amount of time at general parks. I know I would go out for my 2 hours and then I would go home because we had police crawling here in Brooklyn. But Yah says we'll go back to times that are even worse than that, whereby even to go outside to get the exercise, we won't be able to do that. Excuse me. Now, I know that there will always be people who, even if I'm speaking very clearly, there will always be people who will absolutely mishear and then say, oh no, Celestial prophesied that after Trump is Obama. Excuse me, please. No, at no time have I said that immediately the president is taken out, then Obama is the next president of America. No. What God has showed is that there seems to be some kind of jointness or some kind of, I would call it lying in wait. That's what I would call it. I would call it lying in wait of Obama connected to the life of Donald Trump. In this prophecy that I just mentioned called America in Tumult, Part 3, it's called Deep State. America in Tumult is a 3-part prophecy, okay? One of them talks about the rise of instability in America, bombings, package bombs, suitcase bombs, blowing up offices, blowing up cafes, blowing up embassies, things like that, sending letters with bomb threats, sending letters with anthrax. That's something that I saw. They're going to send letter with like anthrax and other kinds of communicable diseases in envelopes to cause so much instability in the country that at one point I saw that people who were living in the urban areas, people who were living in cities, the husbands started telling their wives, I think that you should go and stay with your mom for a while, because the mom didn't live in a big city. Maybe she lived in like a quiet neighborhood, a suburb, or even she lived in the rural areas. Husbands started sending their wives and their kids away from the cities because the cities became so unstable, and there was just the military everywhere that I was seeing. So it was 3 parts. And in the 3rd part, I saw President Donald Trump about to make a speech, and it was, you know, the White House briefing with the blue wall and everything, just basically how I'd have it in the White House, for him to make an official appearance. And so he was waiting in the wings. There was definitely a stage out there, and then a curtain, and he was behind the curtain, and he was waiting in the wings for them to say, and now the President of the United States. And then obviously he walks out from behind the curtain. So he was standing there and he was looking forward. And he had no idea that Barack Obama was standing directly behind him. Barack Obama standing directly behind him isn't to be processed in people's brains as, oh, okay, so Trump is the president, and then that's not necessarily what it means, because Barack Obama was standing so close to Donald Trump that I said literally the tips of his polished black shoes, because he was so excited. Obama was so excited standing behind President Trump. So it can be that, it can be what it looks like, succession, or it just can show you the architecture of malice that I have always been speaking about here. He was so excited standing behind this man because, number one, the man had no idea that he was standing behind him. And you've just heard in this prophecy that God says, literally, the president does not know. The president has no idea what is being discussed about him. The president has no idea that there is a vote of no confidence against him. The president has no idea that he is going to get the worst job review of his life, because an assassination is the worst job review that says, we've reviewed your tenure will not be renewed, you can go. And that literally does mean not only go from the job, it means literally leave this life, leave the world. And so Obama was standing right behind this man. He was so excited that he was bouncing up and down, like he was rocking back and forth on his heels, like you know how wizard-like people do in the movies when they're just plotting on you and stuff like that. He was rocking back and forth, and as he would rock forward his shoes, he was standing so close to President Trump. This is in President Trump's first term. I had this dream. He was standing so close that the tips of his shoes almost were rubbing the back of the man's shoes. Like they would have been rubbing it with a squeaky sound. That's how close he was to this man. And yet President Trump was absolutely oblivious to the fact that Barack Obama was standing behind him. And then they called his name and he went out to the podium to make his speech. And while he was making his speech, I saw like a big blood stain spreading on his chest. But he also seemed completely oblivious to that. He was making his speech and it literally looked like he had been shot. It was spreading on his white shirt. Obama was still standing back in the shadows. And Trump was on stage making a speech. And then I just saw a big bloodstain spreading, and he was completely oblivious to this. So you are basically hearing God say something that I have not said before, that both president and vice president, Yah was telling me that in America, a time will come when the president and the vice, this is Vice President J.D. Vance in our current administration, there will come a time in America when the president and the vice president will be shot, either a headshot or a hard shot. And then right after that, we're not going to be able to vote again because we're going to go into some kind of military rule. And then when the time comes that Obama is now put in power, I saw that it was by appointment that he was appointed to the role. So it wasn't by any kind of popular vote, or because how can it be? He's precluded from participating in any more voting competitions to be president a third time. But I saw that he was appointed as interim head, which on the face of it then means, oh, we need someone to sit there. Let's just have Obama sit there until we can get to voting. But what I saw is that that appointment gave him absolute power. There won't be a popular vote. At some point, Obama will be appointed as interim head of operations and given absolute power by his appointment. It will be a time of military rule and loss of personal freedoms, and he will crush this nation to power under his regime because he is diabolical and wicked. He will rule with an iron fist, and hardships, and many hardships will come upon the American people under his leadership. But when you warn the American people about Barack Obama, they have so much to say. There's so much anecdotal. He's a kind man. You only want to hate on him. You know, this mental stretch, and it's a poor one that people have, that someone is speaking to you about very high level spiritual things. And then the only like oatmeal that can come from a person's mouth. So many mouths out there. Oh, you must hate him. Oh, you're just trying to bring him down. How do you bring someone down who's in the sewer? How is this done? Those of you who are so certain that that is what I'm doing, walk me through it. Because this is one who, even while I was trying to tend to my throat just now, Yah was telling me that this man, even Obama himself, will have his day of judgment. Even Obama himself will be killed. Daniel 7 sees to it that the Ancient of Days is the one who will handle the beast, who will handle Satan, who will handle all of them. So even his life will eventually be preyed upon and destroyed by the Lord Almighty. Where do you imagine God is going to put this man? If someone is already in the bowels of Hades, what can a mere human being like me do to bring him down? This is how you know people in this nation are not thinking spiritually. These are not people of the spirit. These are just people of the street. Because spiritual people, when they hear the truth, the conviction of the Holy Spirit bringing forth, the Bible says that the Holy Spirit is the one who takes of the things of God. This is the plans of God. This is what is going on in God's mind. This is what God can see up ahead. It is the Spirit of God that takes of the things of God and will make it known to us as people of God, as people of faith. But then you have people pretending to the role of people of God. You have people pretending to be born again. You have people pretending that they serve God when really their hearts are full of darkness. They're children of darkness. They're children of the devil. They're followers of the devil, greatly plumping up the church, greatly pretending to be children of God until the matters of their father, the devil, are discussed. And then all of a sudden you see them reacting. You see them angry. You see them frustrated. Why are you talking about transgenders that way? Why are you talking about all these secret men who are living as women? They're actually women. Based on what? Based on your upset. Based on the fact that you don't know anything. Based on the fact that you can't hear of the sins of America that God is going to expose regardless of your feelings on the matter. It will be exposed, not only by myself. I go ahead as the herald to prophesy, but then God will come and tear every covering off of everything, and it will be exposed, and you will be judged to your shame for your unbelief. Unbelief is a sin. Unbelief is a damnable and condemnable sin by God. You can call it logic. You can call it, well, I'm just checking, I'm fact checking. There's nothing like fact checking in the spiritual realm. You are either deceived and walking in the sin of unbelief, or you can hear the voice of the Lord because you are his sheep and you know when he is speaking. So there is just this, the lack of popular vote, the coming of a time of appointment as a head of something, head of operations, head of the government, not definitely the voting process, not definitely the one man, one vote process, and Barack Obama coming into absolute power, coinciding with a time of military rule where we won't have personal freedoms anymore. And God says that this America will be crushed to powder. Do you know how oppressive the kind of government God is talking about? Do you know how oppressive? We won't be able to move. We'll be like a spider when a spider wraps its victims in the web and just wraps them up so tightly into that little ball so they can digest its juices. And God was even talking about the time that the Democrats will surge forward, like they're going to kind of press forward. It could coincide with the same time, sort of like they observe, because remember, God says that enemies and the Democrats and the Republicans sadly no longer understand what it is to work together in government. They no longer understand what it means to have bipartisan collaboration to make the government work, to make the government have literally one state of the union. They're now boxing and clawing each other in there like alley cats, trying to constantly one up each other and trying to always seek the downfall of one another. And so Yah is mentioning here something about a power surge of the Democrats surging forward like the foaming of the sea. So it could be when the Republicans fumble the football, the Democrats will see their shot, propose something, and a choice of leadership, I guess. Excuse me, please. So that is from November the 8th, 2019. And now let me find my way back to the message I was doing. The message is called "The Chain of Continuity Will Be Broken," and this is December the 4th, 2025. And then I was talking about the predators getting America when she falls down. Okay, and then this last part says emergency measures will be put in place citing danger to the republic. So that's basically, and here it comes, national security rules, military rules essentially will become the order of the day in America. Presidents can die. Presidents do die. Presidents get removed and don't always get to retire peacefully afterwards. MAGA has completed the assignment and the clock is ticking into overtime. Bring in the beast. Bring in the new world order. Bring in the one world government. Bring in the deception that the whole world marvels after. Bring in the end of days operation and the rise of a global kingdom. I'm constantly talking about this coming of the Revelation 13 world. I spend a lot of time wondering if Christians really understand what is being shared with them here on this channel. Do you really apply your mind correctly to what it means to have the old world that you are used to transformed into a new world with a totally different way of doing things, a completely contrary style of life, a highly automated style of life, and you transition into that thing regardless of whether you want to transition into it or not, because as long as you're not dead, you are going to end up in the beast system. We are in the beast system right now, and the changes are being made around us so rapidly that some of us are having meltdowns, some of us are starting to feel suicidal, and people just barely can't keep up. They can barely keep up with the pace of daily life on their own, but then this higher awareness that is required spiritually, it is required. You know something? Higher awareness in spiritual things is required regardless of if you're able to keep up, if you want to keep up, or if you think you can keep up. None of those actually affect the flow of the requirement to keep up. Because it's either you keep up or you will fall down that mountain I'm always talking about. You will slide down that mountain. You will lose your grip. Because the mountain isn't going to change its steepness. It's not going to change its slipperiness. It's not going to change its jaggedness because somebody can't keep up. That's why God was asking Jeremiah, if you can't even run with footmen, how are you going to be able to run against horses? And you heard me say in the beginning that Yah was telling me that the year ahead is fraught with disappointment again, actually, is what he's telling me. And that's one of the first things that came out of my mouth for 2025. That 2025 was going to be a year of sharp disappointment for people. And God is just telling me right now that fraught with disappointment. And I brought this prophecy recently. He said the year ahead will be fraught with disappointment, but the people of God will be able to find the opportunities. There are opportunities in the midst of those frustrations, in the midst of those letdowns, in the midst of those disappointments. But yet the Lord is saying that the people of God, if they remain in him, if they walk in him, if they cleave to him, meaning you really hold on to God, but you're not holding on to God with just crying. No, you're saying, Lord, I hold on to you for my destiny. You're reading things like Psalm 25. You're reading things like Psalm 35. You're reading things like Psalm 31, Psalm 32, Psalm 33, and 34. In fact, from Psalm 30 to about 35, that's a whole stack. It's a whole wonderful stack. Psalm 25, Psalm 27, Psalm 18, Psalm 91, Psalm 109, a staple. Psalm 119, Psalm, I think it's 126. It's either 126 or 121. If it had not been for the Lord who was on my side, let Israel now say, if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side, then men would have eaten us up quick. Men would have eaten us up quick. It's the intention of men in this country to eat up the people. It's the intention of men in your country to eat up the people, to consume the people and consume their resources. Are you food for the wicked? Are you food for witches? Are you food for the government architects who are staging coups and assassinations all over the world? This prophecy is just America's crimes coming home to roost. I said to someone this evening who was complaining on my Facebook, I said, surely, madam, you don't assume that you will destabilize every country in the world and then there will be absolutely no return of the harvest that you sold internationally back within the borders. Surely, you're not suggesting that, are you? So, a country put under emergency measures, and God saying a nation that's already under as much tension as this one is going to respond poorly to a presidential assassination. A 2-for-1 assassination, even worse. A country that cannot follow the chain of command. A country basically that will try to press the button to say, don't worry, we have protocols for this. And then you press the button of the protocols and it's just unraveled. It's not working. So this phrase from the Patriot Act prophecy of 2023, presidents can die, presidents do die. That was one of the prophecies that was talking about the death of Donald Trump. Yah was saying that presidents get old, presidents get sick, they get diseases. And he said presidents also get shot, especially of nations that go around causing the shooting of other people's presidents. In the Patriot Act prophecy, Yah said that America has caused untold pain by shooting sometimes the most beloved leaders, especially in Africa. He was saying that America has organized the overthrow and obviously the deaths of some of Africa's most beloved leaders, people who were leading Africa into the brave new age of self-actualization, overthrowing the yoke of colonization, basically young countries with extremely well-educated and charismatic leaders, all of a sudden just meeting a sudden slew of deaths, and then in come these puppets that then sit in power for 30 to 40 years and give America access to all the resources at pennies on the dollar. This is what happened to America very early on in her infancy. And God was just asking in the Patriot Act why America thinks that she can do that in other countries and that such a thing won't actually happen here, and send her spinning off into the void. Send her into instability, send her into basically an unworkable situation. So we talked about MAGA before. MAGA can definitely be found by name in two Master's Voice prophecies. One from 2022 that is called MAGA Deception and the Beast. The other one is The Assignment is Complete. And you can find that snippet in the bigger prophecy that is called Sit Down, O Babylon. And then recent prophecies just talking about the president's death. It's called The Beast System is in Effect. You will hate what comes next. Another one is called The Kennedy Connection. That is a really good video. The Holy Spirit really did a magnificent job on that video. I have seen it several times and it never gets old. So there's also a little snippet called A Favorite Son Will Die. So I'm Celestial, and this is the Master's Voice. You've been listening to the prophecy that is called The Chain of Continuity Will Be Broken, December the 4th, 2025, as well as some other snippets in between. You've heard the prophecy Empty in this one. Empty is from August 2019, and you've also heard just a bit from my notes that is titled Divine Assurances, and the date for that is November the 8th. 2019. So there's not much of a gap between August and November. God was saying the same thing. Presidential shooting is coming, instability for the United States, basically running around, confusion, and not following the ABCs of how America knows herself to be. God bless you. I'm Celestial. This is the Master's Voice Prophecy blog. Please do not interact with scammers. Please stop talking to scammers that are talking to you in your inbox. Stop talking to people who are telling you that they have a village they want you to sow in. Stop talking to people who are telling you that they can see your future and they want to pray. And that is not me. These are scammers. If you interact with them, they will fleece you financially. They will get your financial information and they could cause damage. They could do identity theft on you. So please, can you stop interacting with these people? Because I have said 1,000,001 times that I'm not asking anyone directly to give me any money, or indirectly or sidely. I'm not doing that. I'm here making sure that you hear the word of the Lord and that you understand it and that you grasp it and that you don't underplay it and that you don't turn it to say what it didn't say, because I'm actually quite clear. The video can be rewinded 100 times until you get it. So there's no need to supply your interpretation on top of it. That's why so many people are not benefiting from these prophecies. I'll say a specific thing and then people will go into the archive of their own mind, in their own limited knowledge, something, and pick something that doesn't match the future thing that I said is coming. Because they don't have a reference for the future thing that is coming, but they want to prove that, yes, I understand it. So then they go into their mind and they pick something that doesn't match what I said at all. And then their mind tells them, yeah, it's a pretty close match. That's what she said. But that's not what I said. You are at risk of preparing for an exam that hasn't been set. It's a different exam that's being set. Yah is telling us very different things. So when you go into your arsenal of knowledge and you start to pick things according to what you know and apply them to a prophecy that doesn't match, it is you that will get the failing grade. Please do not do that. Okay, God bless you, and until I see you again, goodbye.